My parents demanded I prove my love by handing over my $437,000 home to my sister. I said no. So my dad slammed a metal cake stand into my skull at her wedding. Then her fiancé revealed a secret that blew everything apart. Hey, Reddit. Before we dive in, I've been noticing the channel's losing its engagement lately, and subscribing is the best way to keep it going. Let's try to hit 4,000 subscribers before the end of this week. Every single sub makes a difference. Now, let's jump into today's story. I'm 29 years old, and I bought my house 3 years ago. Every penny from my savings, bonuses, overtime hours, and sacrifices. It wasn't just a house. It was proof that all the years I spent grinding my soul into dust amounted to something real. Something I could touch. Something mine. So when my parents sat me down and told me I needed to prove my love to the family by giving that same house to my younger sister as a wedding gift, I honestly thought they were joking. They weren't. My mother had that eerie calm smile she always wore when delivering emotionally manipulative bombs, and my father, arms crossed, jaw locked, looked like he was gearing up for war. Family comes first, my mom said. And if you love your sister, you'll do this for her. You're stable. You don't even have a boyfriend. You have time to get another house. Stable. As if stability was some curse I should apologize for. As if it meant I owed them something. My sister, Leah, sat on the edge of the couch next to them, clutching her phone like it was a shield. She didn't look at me, not once. Just stared at the floor like she knew this was wrong but didn't have the spine to say it. You're not even married, Dad added. Leah and Chris are starting a life. They need a foundation, and I need a place to live. I snapped. They threw every emotional dagger they could. Guilt, obligation, reminders of how much they'd sacrificed for me growing up. And when that didn't work, they escalated. My refusal was taken as betrayal. From that moment on, I wasn't the daughter who had paid my way through college, who paid their bills when Dad lost his job, who fixed Mom's roof leak last winter. I was the selfish one. They stopped speaking to me for weeks. My texts were ignored. My calls declined. My name wasn't even mentioned during family dinners I wasn't invited to. I found out later that Leah and Chris had gone ahead and printed wedding programs listing the house as their newlywed gift. They'd assumed I'd cave. I didn't, and that's when everything started to unravel. The wedding was held at an overpriced vineyard my parents could barely afford, but they pushed themselves to the financial brink to make it a day Leah would never forget. And oh boy, it sure became that. I showed up because part of me was still holding on to some pathetic shred of hope that anyone would apologize, or maybe even acknowledge how insane all of this had been. Instead, I walked into whispers. People turned and looked at me like I was the villain, like I'd shown up to spit on the cake. Dad avoided me completely. Mom gave me a forced hug and then whispered, "You're lucky we even let you come." Then came the reception. Everything hit the fan in the middle of the cake cutting. Chris, Leah's fiancé, seemed tense all evening. Clenched jaw, glassy eyes. When the MC called for a speech, he stepped up with a champagne flute and didn't toast. He talked. "Before we continue, I need to say something," he said. "There's been a lot of talk about family lately, about what we owe each other, about love." Leah looked panicked. I saw her shaking her head, barely perceptible, silently begging him to stop. Chris didn't. I learned a few things over the last couple of months. Things that made me question not just this wedding, but the people standing behind it. Silence. Forks stopped clinking. People leaned in. Chris turned toward me. "You," he said. "You're the only person in this room who hasn't lied to me." I froze. He continued, "Your sister's been lying to me about money, about where she's been, and about who she's been seeing. 2 weeks ago, I found messages between her and your cousin David. Graphic, emotional, and frequent. They'd been sleeping together, and she planned to tell me after the wedding. After the honeymoon, because she didn't want to lose the lifestyle," someone gasped. Leah started crying. Mom stood up and shouted, "Chris. Please. This isn't the place." Chris ignored her. I was going to let it go. I really was. But then I found out about the house that they tried to pressure her sister into giving it up. That this whole wedding, this whole circus was built on manipulation. He turned to Leah. "I can't marry someone who doesn't respect their own family enough to speak the truth." He set the champagne glass down gently. I'm out. And he walked off the stage. I sat frozen, unsure whether to feel vindicated, horrified, or both. People were whispering now openly, brutally. I stood to leave before things got worse. Then my dad came up behind me. What did you do? He hissed. I didn't do anything. And you think this is funny? You think this is some kind of payback for the house? Before I could say a word, he grabbed the cake stand, the thick metal base they just used, and slammed it into the side of my head. Everything spun. I hit the floor. People screamed. Someone grabbed him. Someone else called 911. And I remember Leah yelling, crying, "Dad, what are you doing?" Like she hadn't seen him lose it 100 times before. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. A minor concussion, 6 stitches. The officer at my bedside said they'd arrested my father for assault. My mother was trying to spin it as a moment of emotional distress. Chris had already packed up and left town. The wedding was annulled before it even began. And Leah, she never visited me in the hospital, but that wasn't the end. Not even close. The hospital discharged me 2 days later. My head was sore. My stitches itched, and everything felt like a blur I couldn't shake. A dozen voicemails were waiting on my phone, most from extended family, half of them offering hollow apologies, the rest demanding I drop the charges for the sake of the family. I didn't. My father spent a night in jail before my mother bailed him out. They sent a single text between them. "You've torn this family apart. We hope you're happy." Not a word about the assault. Not a word about the lies, the manipulation, or the hell they put me through. And Leah, silence. The silence didn't last. 3 weeks later, I came home from the grocery store to find Leah sitting on my front steps, sunglasses hiding her puffy eyes, a suitcase at her feet. Her mascara had bled into the corners of her face like a smear of guilt. I didn't know where else to go. She said, the audacity made me laugh. An ugly, bitter sound I didn't recognize as my own. She looked so small in that moment, like a child who just learned the world could hurt. "Why would you think I'd let you stay here? I don't have anyone else." She whispered, "And whose fault is that?" She cried. I let her. Then I told her she could stay the night, but only in the guest room, and only because I wanted answers. We sat at my kitchen table that night, nursing lukewarm tea and years of resentment. She unraveled, told me the affair with our cousin David had started a year ago in secret. She was never in love with Chris, but he had money, status, and our parents adored him. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a future, and she thought he could give it to her. But David threatened to expose everything after I got engaged. She said, and Mom. She said, if I just got the house, we'd be secure. That maybe I wouldn't need Chris anymore. That hit me like a truck. Mom knew about David. Leah nodded. Since last summer. So my mother had not only tried to manipulate me into giving up my house, but she had done so while fully aware that the entire wedding was a lie. She was ready to sacrifice my future to protect Leah's illusion. And Dad? I asked. Did he know? She hesitated. Dad thought you were being selfish. Mom told him you were sabotaging the wedding because you were jealous of me. That's why he snapped. It didn't excuse anything, but suddenly the rage made a sick kind of sense. He'd seen me not as a daughter, but as a threat to their fantasy. Leah stayed for 3 days. On the 4th, she woke to find her suitcase by the door, a hotel voucher on top of it, and a note from me that read, "You burned every bridge. I'm not rebuilding it for you." I didn't hear from her again until 2 months later through a lawyer. Apparently, my father was trying to sue me for defamation and emotional damages from the assault charges. Their legal claims said I'd exaggerated the incident and that the injury was accidental. They were hoping I'd back down and settle quietly. They didn't know me at all. My lawyer gathered the wedding footage. There were dozens of guests recording, and the incident had gone viral in a small corner of Facebook. One video even caught Dad saying, "I'll knock some sense into you Sicans before the blow." When their lawyer saw the footage, they dropped the case. But it didn't end there. Chris reached out. He'd moved to Colorado, started over, said he felt like he owed me something. "I never believed all the stories they told me about you," he said, "but I didn't speak up when I should have. I'm sorry for that." He told me Leah had tried to contact him multiple times. She even flew out once to beg him to take her back, claiming she was pregnant. She wasn't. She was just spiraling. Then came the final nail. A year after the wedding that wasn't, my parents filed for bankruptcy. The vineyard wedding, legal fees, and personal debts had bled them dry. They lost the house. The same house they'd once claimed they sacrificed everything to give us. My mother called me first time in almost a year. She was crying, said she was sorry. Said she missed me. Said they were struggling and could really use my help. Just a few thousand to help them get back on their feet. I let her speak. Then I said calmly and clearly, "You told me I owed Leah my house to prove I loved her. What did you give me to prove you loved me?" Silence. She started to cry again. I ended the call. That was the last time I spoke to either of them. It's been 2 years now. I still live in my house. The same house I nearly gave away to people who would have gladly ruined me. It's quiet now. Peaceful. But every time I pass the old guest room, I remember the girl sitting on the steps, suitcase at her feet, hoping I'd forget everything she'd done. And every time I see a metal cake stand at a store, I remember how quickly love turns to violence when loyalty is demanded, not earned. I didn't destroy my family. The truth did. They just never expected me to stop lying for them.